A gigantic breakfast for Lord Sinclair, a rich blend of comedy and suspense, and the inventive direction of Peter Medak make for solid escapism in this interesting episode of The Persuaders, which starts with a spectacular sequence filmed on location at the Silverstone race circuits near Oxford.
80% of it is the interplay between Tony and Roger.
Yeah.
Of the whole show, and they have a particular kind of humor.
Okay, boss.
Silverstone, with the race cars. Do you remember being at Silverstone?
Yes, I do, and of course it's completely empty when we were shooting there, you know,
yeah.
And intercutting it with stock shots, you know, of the race and stuff like that. Yeah. I do remember actually once Tony done his 2 circuit, you know, I jumped into the car and I went myself to drive it, you know, because it's the only time, and I can't remember whether it was a Formula 1 or 2, I don't know what kind of racing car it was. But it was a fantastic experience being so low ground and low on the ground and driving, and it was so sensitive, turning the wheel and stuff like that. Yeah. And that I remember completely.
There's a lovely bit of business that Tony does when he gets in the car and he puts his helmet on backwards. Were these kind of things in the script, or was Tony ad-libbing, and how much of the comedy was on paper and how much of it was spontaneous?
Yeah, it's got this kind of wonderful, crazy humor in it, you know.
Yeah.
And I'm sure that wasn't written in the script when he puts the helmet on backwards, you know.
Yeah.
And he just saw, it's typical Tony, you know. We shot it all for real, you know. And I think we just put a mount on the car for his close-ups, you know, and stuff like that. And it was all done for real, and with stunt doubles and with Tony.
So Tony got to actually drive the car around the track and
yeah,
that.
Yeah, he loved driving around on that. But Tony did quite a bit of the driving. Yeah, they both wanted to do as much as they can. You know, with all the fighting and all that. But yeah, he was a wonderful actor, and I loved directing him, working with him.
Goodbye, Curly.
Oh God, I just remembered something, because I needed Roger to walk from one point to another outside the stage to shoot a shot of him running.
Yeah.
And Roger turned to me and said, "Have you ever seen me running? Ever?" I said, "No." Well, he said, I think you should do another shot than me running, because I look terrible running, you know.
Yeah.
But I just remember that when you were talking, well, that's it, you know. But I mean, yes, it was most of it shot at Pinewood. On stage 5, I think we were. And then some of it, you know, at the racetrack and exteriors and locations and stuff. I knew those studios very well, and the minute that wonderful smell of the stage hits you when you open the big doors and you go in, it's memorable, and you will never forget it in your life. You know, and it's very sentimental and very romantic and all that, you know. I mean, when I go to Shepperton, I remember movies like Guns of Navarone,
Yeah.
and I still remember when I bumped into Alec Guinness in a certain corner of the studio
Yeah.
at Shepperton, and you never forget those things, you know. It's a wonderful kind of journey of your life. And I know, because I remember people came to me and said, "You are crazy. Why are you, after your big movie of the ruling class, why are you doing television?"
Yeah. Yeah.
And I said, I remember that, I distinctly remember, and I said, because I want to work with my friends.
Yeah. Yeah.
You know, and it was great fun doing it. You know, they were both very flashy dressers, Tony and Roger.
Yeah.
And they were always competing with each other of who looks better and who looks more different and all that. And they copied each other. And Tony had this swaying motion, you know, when he was doing dialogue, you know, and doing this. And Roger was doing exactly the same as well.
Yeah.
And I was wondering who is copying who, you know.
Yeah. Was the competition always friendly, or did they get on well as two actors?
No, it was all very courteous and friendly, you know. And Tony was always talking to me between takes in Hungarian.
Yeah.
Because he was Hungarian origin. And Roger used to get really kind of upset about it. And he said, well, what does he want from you? Every time you say you cut, you know, he just grabs you and he starts talking in Hungarian. And that just shows, you know, that there was this competition between them.
Yeah, he probably felt a bit paranoid, like maybe not him or something like that.
And it was a great thing because, I mean, for Lou, great to be able to get Tony Curtis to be in the show.
Yeah.
Because, I mean, he was a big, big name.
He was, yeah.
I mean, so was Roger, you know, but in an English way.
Yeah.
It just reminded me very much, as I said before, of Paul Chris Plummer, who was a great friend who's passed away.
Yeah.
His wonderful film of Knives Is Out or something.
Yeah. It was a really great film, that, wasn't it?
Yeah. And this is that type of a television thing from 50 years ago. And Knives Is Out was today doing it an old-fashioned style of a murder mystery thing.
Yeah.
And it was highly amusing, wonderful, and enjoyable, and a wonderful film, I thought.
Oh, it is one of my favorite films of recent years, certainly.
When I was an assistant director, second assistant director on VIPs, which was a film in England, with Richard Burton and Elizabeth Taylor and Margaret Rutherford and Rod Taylor and Orson Welles at MGM Studios at Boreham Wood.
Yeah.
I had a phone call from a previous producer friend who I worked with as an assistant director, saying, "Kid, how would you like to go to Hollywood and start to direct?" From that, I was offered a 7-year contract from Universal to come to Hollywood, observe productions, and eventually come back to England, which I did do 3 years later. So I became British at the British consulate, you know. So I wasn't British when I arrived to Universal Studios.
Yeah.
And I said, "We need to get your green card and your work permit. So we want you to go and stay with Mr. Hitchcock on his film, Marnie, and observe him directing." So that's how I met Mr. Hitch. And I was there observing him and being with him and watching his genius way of working and directing on that film.
Yeah.
And ironically, Sean Connery was the male star of that film. And I knew Sean from London. And Sean walked on the stage one morning and he said, "Hey, kid, what are you doing here?" And I said, "Sean, I'm going to be a director." And I saw him then. And in fact, I went to see the first Bond movie which he was in.
Oh, yes.
It's shown at 20th Century Fox together because he said, "There's a screening tomorrow of my Bond. And it's just coming out. I want you to come and see it with me." So I went.
Oh, wow.
But it was great working with Hitchcock. And he was, because he used to be an art director, designer. So he has, before he made a movie, he drew out every frame of it.
Oh, wow. Yeah.
That's how he was making his films.
Yeah.
And he was a genius.
So how would you describe...
It was incredible working with him. And of course, influenced me very much.
Yeah.
If you see The Changeling, because I really did The Changeling in a way as an homage to his kind of movies, whether it was the one movie with Cary Grant or whichever movies,
Yeah.
And I always say when the few times I'm speaking at Sundance Institute or at UCLA or here and there at universities, he said, if you want to do it, you will do it, And if you want to become whatever, you will achieve that somehow.
Yeah, yeah.
But you cannot give up. You mustn't give up. And it wasn't easy then at all. And it was never, ever easy to get into the film business, ever.
No.
And just as difficult now as it was then, And it's an impossible puzzle, but a puzzle can be solved.
Oh, yeah.
Second off the track record. He did it! Wonderful. Come on. Ready? Well, this champagne. Flat champagne. I love it. Love it. Thank you, Daniel. You're welcome. Let's have it.